are talking the low-budget B-movie American Hunt. This one is directed and written by Aaran and stars Lacy Hartselle. This movie, I feel, was a kind of low-budget alternative to the medium-budget movie called The Hunt. You might be thinking, The Hunt? I've never heard of that. Well, that's because that movie got pulled from release and has never actually been released to this day because they felt it was too politically sensitive. And essentially The Hunt that stars Emma Roberts from American Horror Story, and was essentially a kind of American red versus blue most dangerous game style movie. So this one is kind of the low budget equivalent of that. Now there's been plenty of the most dangerous game style movies. Obviously the original Most Dangerous Game has spawned a whole host of imitators, and we've seen, you know, every few years you'll get kind of one, and some of them are pretty good, some of them are quite sort of fun, and some of them are maybe less so. So what is this one kind of full? But just in case you are unaware of the plot of any of those things I've mentioned, American Hunt, essentially, we have these two kind of younger brothers who own this kind of like farmland. And what they do is they entice young people to come and camp there. Essentially, one of the brothers goes and finds a girl, dates them for a few months, invites her and her friends to come and kind of camp on their land. And then they hunt them. These two brothers hunt them for fun, but then they also sell body parts to obviously finance their shenanigans. The older brother is kind of, he's more in it for the hunt. He's a bit more sensible, but the younger brother is a little bit more of a psychopath and kind of enjoys torturing his victims a little bit more. So we have these three kind of characters come to the kind of, obviously, this farm. The girl he's been dating and another couple, a guy and his girlfriend, who is played by Lacy Hartselle, who is kind of a little bit squeamish. She's not really into hunting and everything like that. Inevitably, they're going to start getting hunted, and obviously the body count whittles down. We end up with the kind of lone survivor who will try to fight back. Do they succeed? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about American Hunt. So like I've said, there's been a lot of these type of movies before. I have to be honest with you, this one doesn't really kind of stand out out of the pack from any way. This one doesn't really do anything new. It does come across as very low budget and have nothing really kind of to set it apart from any of the other ones. Is there anything you can say that works in this movie? I quite liked I think the acting was all pretty good here, if I'm honest. I think everyone does a pretty passable job here. Maybe the brothers are played a little bit too broadly and a little bit OTT, but our three kind of victims are pretty fun. And Lacy Hartselle, I think, does a good job here of our main protagonist, who ends up being our sort of POV character, and certainly I think the most relatable out of all the kind of like the three kind of characters that we kind of are hunting essentially. So I think she does a good job here. They're obviously filming this out in location in a kind of a woodland area, and there is some kind of logic involved. They've kind of fenced the area off, so it's not like they mentioned early on that it's 30 acres. I was thinking, that's not that big, and I don't know how they're going to kind of like prevent these people from escaping, but they've got traps, they've got an electric fence and all of this. They've even got a cover story where they kind of they pretend that they're doing some type of drug rehabilitation. I mean, there's logic holes in it, don't get me wrong, but there's at least an attempt here to have some kind of like trying to plug any kind of plot holes that you may kind of say there. So I enjoyed that, and kind of like there's a use of various different kind of knives, guns, things like that, various kind of death traps that are set around. So there's kind of a variety in different kills, and it tries to build a little bit of the kind of mythology in regards to that they've been doing this before, and obviously who they're selling their body parts to, stuff like that. But I've got to say, this movie, at best, is generic. Like I said, it doesn't really do anything that you haven't seen before in one of these kind of, Most Dangerous Game knockoffs, Hard Target, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. There's loads. This one doesn't really set itself apart in any particular way, and I feel was made to be a kind of mockbuster, if you like, to the Hunt, which never actually came out anyway. So this is kind of almost a little bit fallen by the wayside, so to speak. Like I've mentioned, I think the acting is pretty good from our victims. Our Our antagonist overacts a little bit, but they're not distractingly bad, admittedly. There is a little bit of reliance on CGI gore here, which I feel looks pretty bad in places. And there's really not a lot of plot, if we're being honest. They do get straight to it, more or less. So there's no hanging around, but there's not a lot to it, unfortunately. I mean, I reviewed another one called The Furies recently, although that had its problems. There was a little bit more kind of going on there, and this one doesn't have that at all. So it's a pretty forgettable kind of B-movie, most dangerous game knock-up with no real kind of distinguishing features to make it kind of stand out from this getting now fairly crowded pack of these kind of style movies. But it isn't terrible. It's kind of at least generically watchable. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.